Welcome back to the 28 AM podcast. This is me, Ayush Majithia, your host. I'm deeply passionate about learning, and I began the 28 AM podcast to share the knowledge that I gained from the people I know. Our guests for today are two members of a youth organization by the name Unorthodox Newsletter. The members believe in prioritizing mental health over the rush of routine. They aim to develop an understanding of mental health with the support of research and spread the awareness and knowledge through their newsletter and social media posts. We have Girija Dempo and Annika Dhawan from the team. Girija and Annika are psychology students at University of St. Andrews, Scotland. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ayush.
Okay, so I'm really excited to have you guys, and I was curious about what is the story behind starting Unorthodox Newsletter? Because it's such an amazing idea that y'all are spreading mental health awareness across the globe through your platform and trying to impact people's lives with it.
So, Unorthodox started around June 2020, and this was around the first wave of COVID. So, we are 5 psychology students, as you know, from the University of St. Andrews. And our main aim to start this was to implement an idea that we had, and that was to spread awareness about mental health, to kill the stigma around it. So, we found this platform the best way to convey nuances surrounding it. And the best way was to bring youth together on a common topic. And most of our articles, our research blurbs, etc., are backed by research. So that is what makes us unique from other newsletters talking about the same topic.
Yeah, I saw your newsletters. It's really interesting. I don't know how y'all do it, but y'all combine a way of making it gripping for a person, and you'll also add the sources from where y'all got it. So it's like if there's a certain university that has spoken about it, then y'all will mention that. But I really love the style of writing because y'all make it really gripping and a person wants to read more about it. So I think that was really an interesting form. And yeah, I would definitely recommend people to subscribe to your newsletter and check out your posts on your website.
I think that was one of the main things that we wanted to do when we started Unorthodox, just having the source there. Because so many times people just repost things on their stories and stuff, and you read it, but you don't know why you should do that, or who said that you should do that, like where's the credibility. So that's one of the main things that we had in mind when we started Unorthodox.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few people getting fooled by Instagram posts. Because I've actually had friends who come up to me and they'll be like, this is some fact and all. And then I'm like, where did you see it? And they're like, Instagram. And I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense because it's not possible. So I think adding the sources was like a really good part. And yeah. But was there another? Yeah, sorry, you can continue.
I also feel that mental health as a term is used very loosely, and even self-care around it. So I just feel that practicing self-care is definitely a part of understanding mental health and spreading awareness, but it comes with what you like personally. So, for example, for me, self-care might just be petting a pet dog, or just taking a stroll in the park when I feel overwhelmed at times. So also the other reason that we started such a platform was to understand mental health better, and also to kind of to prevent stigma around it. So that was the main aim.
Yeah. I think that is important because in the age which we live in, I have noticed a lot of this, that people self-proclaim themselves with these mental disease. They'll be like, I have depression, or I have anxiety, I have this, I have that, when they aren't really suffering from it. Because I think clinical depression is way more different than just being sad that someone had a breakup or something else. And people are using these kind of terms for themselves and, self-proclaiming themselves as they have a certain disease. So I think this kind of thing really helps, I would say.
Yeah, I think like people haven't really been diagnosed with stuff and they just self-diagnose themselves and say, oh, I have this and I have that. And then I feel like especially in our age, sometimes people use these mental disorders as insults towards people as well. Like very often, I think in school as well, like we've heard people insult people or like try to bully them by saying that they have a mental disorder. And I think that's just, they use these terms and very loosely. And yeah, we're trying to just spread more awareness about what those actually mean. And it's not just something that you can just throw around. It's so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important for that. So I wanted to ask you this question, which is how did you all like use social media to leverage it for you all to like, make a positive impact and help you all? Because even if you look at it, social media is linked to a lot of mental health issues while you all use it for the positives, like about that part.
So since we're an e-newsletter that we started during a pandemic, we had to really rely on social media. We had no other means of getting the word out. So we use social media to get the word out about Unorthodox, about to increase our social media followers and our subscribers, our readers, as well as our writers. But while we did use social media to get the word out, we also used it like behind the scenes. Since we are five members and all of us are from different parts of India, and some of us weren't even in India at times. So we really had to use it to interact with each other as well as our writers, because we have about 4 rounds of editing before we actually have the final issue out. And I think that takes quite a bit of use of social media to just interact with the team members, the writers, and doing that throughout the year without any in-person contact has just shown like the power of social media to start something and implement it. Besides that, I think like you mentioned the negatives. In fact, we even wrote an article about Snapchat dysmorphia and about how things like filters and like the Snapchat filters, Instagram filters are just ruining our own self-image. And we're trying to help people reduce that by just spreading awareness about what it's actually doing. You might just take a selfie and not think about it like very much, but then in like subconsciously you're kind of destroying your self-image, I feel.
Yeah, I think that is like true because it impacts your self-worth about what you think of yourself. Because what happens is people start getting used to having these filters on their faces and they think that I don't look good enough without these filters. Only if I have this filter put on, then I will look good or then I will look pretty. And then people start using it in their everyday lives. And when they can't, like when they look at themselves in the mirror, they're like, okay, I'm not pretty, or they can't take those negative comments, I would say.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of like Gary Vee? Yeah, I think Gary Vee like puts it a lot out on the importance of self-worth, because I think what is happening right now because of the age of social media is people want to show to the world that they are something else and in reality they're something else. And Gary talks about it a lot, that how it's actually not good for the mental health. It's not good for people within themselves and they should just like show their true selves out.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people on social media who have like a particular amount of following and a good amount of audience, they've started coming out now about, how they actually look versus what they look after all the filters and the editing and things like that. And I think that's leading to a certain amount of positive change. But there's, of course, like there's always more that can be done.
Correct. I agree. But I was like, I've read these newsletters and also what is the whole process? You said there are like 4 steps before a post comes out. There are like 4 editors who read through it or something. So like, what is the whole process behind the newsletters and posts that you all share? Like, how do you all research and check facts? And, do you all like scrap posts and decide not to post them? Or how do you all do that?
So we usually have issues that come out in summer and winter. So the entire process surrounds the entire research-based approach again. So we expect our writers to follow a few of our submission guidelines. So for example, we look through, we do plagiarism checks, we encourage them to use peer-reviewed research journals in order to support their arguments and their ideas. Definitely, the topic should be something surrounding mental health and spreading awareness about it. So that is always encouraged. Also, following a certain format. I think if it starts with an idea, it should continue with an appropriate argument to support a point. So that is what we expect from our writers. And obviously, so our newsletter is kind of divided into sections. So we have the articles part of it, and we also have a research blurb part. So that's usually just recent research done in the field. For example, you asked me, Ayush, at the beginning about the green color aspect of
Correct.
how nature can help in mental health and mindfulness. So that was one that we worked on. So basically, that's the process and the sections of our newsletter. And our social media, definitely, as Annika said about, I think it's a platform to bring youth together. And so we started with a Feel Good Friday section. And I think that really helped in kind of debunking myths surrounding self-care, etc. Because it's, not just feeling good about yourself by having a cup of coffee or tea. It is definitely much more. So, and I think it depends on each individual as to how you want to practice mindfulness. And that was the main aim of our social media, and also to put out research-based articles.
Yeah. So I think you wanted to know a bit more about like stories about like the entire process, and there have been times that we have gotten articles that have not met our expectations, and we've asked people to work on them. We've had a few articles that have needed more than four editors to look at them, and like 4 edits and things like that. So sometimes articles don't meet our expectations and we have to work on them. Sometimes we have to tell them to just scrap it because it's just not working. And I think that keeping our standards where they are is very important, because sometimes when you don't get enough writers and don't get enough submissions, you tend to just accept whatever you get. And I don't think that's right, because we want to get good quality articles with good quality of research on them. And that can be a bit difficult when you're getting articles from maybe school students who don't really know how the research process should be going about. And I mean, the 5 of us, most of us learned about citations and things like that only at university. So we do understand that it's difficult for school students who are submitting these articles to actually know what references, citations, and peer review journals are. So we do help them and we work with them, and we hope that they get it eventually. But if they don't, we do sometimes scrap them.
But like, how does like one become a writer? How do they like reach out to you if they want to be writing an article for you or something?
So we normally get emails or DMs on our Instagram account, and they normally send us a bit of about what they want to write about. So we do know what they're writing about, and we make sure that no one's repeating the same topic twice. And then we give them a bit of we give them our submission guidelines, which are quite extensive, and we give them a deadline, and then they come back to us and with an article, and then they work with one particular editor on that article over all the next edits. So that way your editor knows exactly where you started and where you ended at the end of all the edits. Sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead. I had a question which was like popped in my mind, but you can continue.
Sometimes, very often, like people do DM us and then they don't actually end up submitting the articles, which can be a bit frustrating, but at the end it all works out.
Yeah, I had a question, which was, y'all said y'all keep plagiarism on check. So how do y'all like check if it's not? Like, do y'all use a software? Do y'all manually check? How do y'all do that? Like, what do y'all do for that?
So usually we use a software. Like in my case, when we're editing all together, we use Grammarly, for example. And so that really helps us understand if there is any plagiarism. And then we encourage, in case there is, we encourage the writers to paraphrase it in a different way and to put more of their original ideas instead of what's just available online, because that's the whole purpose of a newsletter. It's to share your views, but it's also to support your views with credible research, and that can always be done through paraphrasing it and summarizing it in the right way.
Another interesting thing which I really liked about y'all is, like y'all spoke about it, that y'all focus on the quality of the content that y'all put out, and it's really interesting. Like I said before, I don't know how it just manages to grip one's attention. And yeah, I think I've read a lot of your posts. I started reading one or two of your posts on Instagram, and I went on reading more and more and more. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, I would say. It wasn't like a burden for reading.
Yeah, we try to make our posts like as interactive and fun, although they're packed with a lot of research. So at the end, we don't want the readers to feel like they've just come out of like a lecture and and like are very tired of all the reading. But we try to like condense it into smaller bits, so it's fun to read.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So like, why do you all feel that, you all are like very young? I think you all must be like 5 years older than I, but like, why do you all feel that at such a young age that spreading mental health information is important, especially in the time that we live in? Because taking up an initiative at such a young age is like really interesting.
I think spreading information about mental health is more important now than it has ever been. We started Unorthodox during the first lockdown, when mental health had become a part of mainstream conversation. And we spoke about it, people posting stories about tips about like mental health and things like that. And these were not the most factually accurate stories that people were putting out there. And we just felt how dangerous it could be, because you don't see someone putting up information about how about physical health, about how to like improve your physical health on someone's story and people actually following it, because that could be really dangerous. But in terms of mental health, people feel like they can put out any information, even if it's not actually credible. And that's when we decided to create Unorthodox, to spread information that's actually well researched and credible. So the people who are reading it, the audiences, can actually go back to the original source. If they need help, they can contact the helplines that we've also put in on the post as well. We started this thing called Unorthodox Conversations, where we interviewed psychologists. So people like us, we as students, we normally don't very often have access to psychologists. And we want to ask them questions. So we normally put out stories where we ask people what questions they want to ask these psychologists. And then we ask them these questions on a larger platform. So it's just about getting information from a right source and not just the wrong information to the wrong audience.
I think spreading the right information, as I've stated earlier, is really important. And I think we had a hard time. I think the time when you all started, I think you all started in June. That's what you all said, during the pandemic. And at that time also, we lost a very famous actor. And at the start, there were like people who were thinking that it's because of mental health issues and all that stuff. And I think that's when the whole conversation in our country started. Before that, it wasn't really happening in our country. And I don't think it still happens. There's like a huge stigma around people, going to psychiatrists or going to a psychologist and, asking for help or reaching out to a counselor. So how do you all think that can be changed, the stigma around mental health in our country?
I think that's already slowly changing. I mean, personally, what I've seen in my family is that the older generations are more resistant to like going to a psychologist or even open to thinking about it. And very often they don't describe they might have anxiety, but they don't actually want to go and, get it checked or maybe like talk to someone about it. Whereas I feel like people in our generation are more open to going and seeing a psychologist. And that's just something that I've seen personally that more people in our generation end up going to a psychologist. They're more open to receiving help compared to the older generations. And I think we've also had a couple of articles about like the stigma about behind mental health and the whole thing about pill shaming, which has become quite a big issue recently. And so I think it's becoming better, and it's just going to be it's a slow change that will take that will obviously take a while. And yeah, that's.
But what do you think is the reason behind it? Is it because the youth of the country are more expressive in terms, or like why do you think the youth is going more towards expressing themselves and speaking out and focusing on their mental health?
I think things are definitely changing in our country as well as how we see mental health as a whole. But it's very important to understand that mental health is as important as any other activity that we do on an everyday basis. So, for example, some of us prioritize work over other things, and we kind of ride shotgun when we think about mental health. So I think definitely when you talked about the cultural aspect of things and how mental health is treated differently by different generations. And I think as Annika explained about how I think it's definitely a gap in terms of the conversations we choose to have with our primary groups. So if mental health is an important part of our everyday conversations, that could make a huge impact on how we choose to seek help and how our grandparents, for example, treat this topic as a whole. So I feel it's definitely coming from a cultural angle as well.
Yeah, and I think schools. Oh yeah, sorry, you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying that I think schools are also playing a good role in this, in promoting mental health by having counseling sessions every week. Like they have a value education period every week, and I think that really helps. So yeah, I think that's a good thing that schools are doing now.
Yeah, I think also like during the pandemic, that's people have just realized the importance of mental health. I mean, normally I don't really remember people asking about, if you're okay, how is your mental, how are you doing? And I feel like during this past 1 year, people have been reaching out. Like in our university, for instance, like our principal has reached out to all the students and like written an email and told them to take like a day off just to take care of their mental health. And I think that's something that has been missing. Like, why do we need a pandemic to just take care of our mental health? We can do that in a normal year as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's related to mental health exactly, but yeah, due to the online classes and excessive usage of technology in our school, like we used to have classes first on from Monday to Saturday, and now they sent out a letter saying to reduce screen time, and the students' health, they changed it to Monday to Friday, so we get Saturday off now every week. So yeah, but I don't think people really use it well because most of us are still on our phones, and it just happens that normally people would sleep at 11, and if it's a holiday, they'll just sleep at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. And it's the same thing actually at the end. But yeah, we managed to get a holiday. Another question which was in my mind was like, what are some practices that one can follow to increase the quality of one's mental health?
Good now. Yeah, it's recording.
Yeah, I think everyone's recording now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So now there won't be any issue. You can start your answer.
So I feel that there's no particular rule book or a routine one can follow in order to practice mindfulness and to improve your mental health and subsequently the quality of your life. So definitely it's very important, and we encourage that if you're facing concerns that is affecting your life in a certain way and you feel you need help, please seek help from a mental health professional, because that's the best way you can help yourself and therefore your daily functioning. So as I said, there's no set routine. Everyone has a different way of working towards a better emotional state of living. So for some people it might be journaling, for some it might be just sitting around nature, uh, petting animals, etc. So everyone has their own analogy when it comes to practicing mindfulness and leading um, a better kind of emotional state.
Yeah, and I think imitating doesn't really help or work out. Like if one thing works for someone else, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for you. Like I have a friend who journals a lot, and I decided at the start of the year that I'll start journaling also. But then, more than enjoying something or more than it being a form of expression, it started turning into like something forceful and like a burden that, oh, I have to write something this week, oh, I have to write something today. And then I stopped doing it because rather than helping my mental health, it was taking more of a toll on it because it was like a burden because I didn't want to do it and I was forcing myself to do it. So, like you said, that it's different for everyone, and we need to find what that thing is for us.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we should not kind of try to fit in a particular mold of what kind of helps for someone else, as you said. It definitely varies because we as human beings, we have different social environments, and the way we were brought up or and the culture we live in is also different. So I think that also plays a major role in understanding what fits well for you.
How do you all think that culture plays a role on one's mental health?
I think your environment and like obviously the culture of it has a huge role in how you like think and how your mental health is. Like personally during this 1 year of like the entire pandemic since like last June to like this June, it's been quite different for me because I've spent half my time back at home in India and then half my time here in St. Andrews in Scotland. And it's been very different. Like just your environment is not particularly culture, it's just the people you're around. So for instance, when India was, I think, the third lockdown and it was really bad back at home, I was here, I was able to disconnect with it and I was able to have like a healthy balance. Whereas I know that most people back at home were facing a lot of problems dealing with it mentally. And I think it's just that it's being able to disconnect with a certain environment, which could be good or bad. For my case, it was better because at that point, India was not at a good place. Everyone was getting COVID. It was, I feel like that period was just very hard for most people. And it was for my family as well. And because I was here, I was able to disconnect with it. But at the same time, there are times that you want to be in that environment. You want to be with your culture where you can connect to people more. And that's just what makes you feel better. So it's like, could be good, could like, I mean, it just depends on the situation, I feel.
Okay, so I had this another question which was in my mind. What are your future goals or aims with the Unorthodox newsletter? Like, where do you all want to take it ahead? What do you all want to do with it?
So our aim is to have more writers from different parts of the world, and that's what our aim was also to begin with. We didn't want to restrict ourselves to our university in particular or a country in particular. We want our writers to be from different countries, different walks of life, from school, college, adults. We want to really have like a more universal platform where we have writers from different walks of life, and that's our main aim right now. We are also working with our university particularly to just see what are the different options about like expanding our newsletter and things like that. At the same time, we all are going into honors, so we need to focus on our studies as well. So I think just trying to make sure that we can balance other extracurriculars, our university life, studies, as well as unorthodox is our main aim right now.
Wow, that's like amazing. You all have like a whole plan set up, and I definitely think you all are going to do it because even till now, what you all have done is really amazing. And at such a young age, what you all are doing, it's really, I don't know, it's really amazing. And I don't have words to express how cool it is. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, do you all have any last advice for anyone who's listening to this podcast or watching it?
If there's someone who's interested in writing or just sharing something about mental health with a greater audience, they should definitely reach out. And we also have like a get help page on our website. So if anyone's dealing with any facing any mental health problems that they maybe do not want to discuss with a friend or a family, we have multiple free mental health helplines on our website that they can reach out to. And a few of them are particularly catered for teenagers and for specific issues. So if they want to check that out.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a part. I had a really amazing time having you all.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us, Ayush. We really enjoyed being a part of this.